Excuse me, today I'm dying to know why Apple is sitting at number 2 in market cap.
Well, do you want the short version or the long version?
The long version, definitely. I'll order a coffee too. 1 hot coffee, please.
I had a feeling you'd say that, so I already have it ready.
Oh, nice. So, why is Apple so incredibly expensive?
All right, let's start by looking at their stock price movement again. Here's the 5-year chart.
Aren't you going to tell me if it's adjusted for stock splits this time?
Apple's last stock split was back in August 2020, so it doesn't affect the 5-year timeline we're looking at today.
Ah, so this is the actual price movement. Got it.
Just like last time, I'll focus on the key periods where the stock took major swings up and down.
But looking at it like this, Apple has just been consistently crushing it for a long time. Unlike Nvidia, there wasn't really a window in the last 5 years where you could buy in and make a crazy 10 times profit. I guess doubling your money in 5 years is considered a huge win here.
Oh, come on. Who in their right mind talks about doubling their money like it's a walk in the park?
Sorry, what was that?
5 years ago, around March 2021, Apple was trading at $116.40. It kept climbing until it hit $182 in January 2022. The pandemic drove up remote work and online learning, which sent Mac and iPad sales through the roof. On top of that, the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing and low interest rate policies gave the stock a nice tailwind.
So the reasons are pretty similar to Nvidia's, except Nvidia had the whole crypto mining craze, giving them an even bigger boost?
Exactly. But after hitting that $182 peak, the stock dropped back down to $125 by January 2023. Like Nvidia, they were hit by rate hikes and tightening liquidity, but Apple faced a much more fatal issue. Over in Zhengzhou, China, the Foxconn factory that makes iPhones was locked down due to the Chinese government's strict COVID policies. Workers were trapped in brutal conditions with food shortages, leading to a massive walkout. It effectively paralyzed the production lines for the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max.
But they don't only make iPhones in China, and Foxconn definitely has more than just the Zhengzhou factory. Was it really that big of a deal?
Yes, it was. They were making iPhones in India, but mostly just small batches of older budget models. Foxconn has plenty of factories, sure, but the Zhengzhou plant was so massive that it handled the vast majority of the global iPhone supply. Word is that almost all the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max models were being pumped out of that specific facility.
I think I remember seeing an article in early 2023 saying the Zhengzhou plant was finally back to normal, which means before that, supply must have been completely choked off.
Even so, the stock rallied back from $125 in January to $196 by July. The Foxconn mess was sorted out, the Fed's rate hikes were winding down, and fears of a liquidity squeeze faded. Plus, with the rise of ChatGPT, there was this massive expectation that Apple would jump into the fray. Their services division was quietly making a fortune, and they announced the Vision Pro, a next-gen form factor that got everyone hyped for the future.
Sounds like it was mostly driven by hype. But setting the timeline aside, did the Vision Pro actually sell well? I've seen it on YouTube, but I haven't met a single person in real life who actually uses one.
The Financial Times quoted sources from their Chinese assembly partners and supply chain, saying the goal was to sell 1 million units in the first 12 months. But later on, IDC data suggested that the total cumulative sales over 2 years fell significantly short of that 1 million mark.
1 million units. I can't even picture that scale. How many iPhones do they sell in a year?
Roughly 230 million units.
Wow. I thought 1 million was a huge number, but compared to the iPhone, it suddenly looks like peanuts. If the rumors are true, they definitely underperformed their own expectations.
Back to the stock. From that $196 in July 2023, it slid down to $165 by April 2024. While the US was hitting China with semiconductor sanctions, Huawei launched the Mate 60 Pro with a homegrown 7nm processor. It sparked a wave of patriotic consumption in China, taking a serious bite out of iPhone sales in one of Apple's most crucial markets. To make matters worse, they got slapped with an antitrust lawsuit in the US under the Sherman Act, and Europe rolled out the Digital Markets Act. Basically a parade of bad news for Apple's services revenue. On top of all that, they weren't showing any clear vision or innovation in AI.
Hearing all those events back to back, it sounds apocalyptic, but the stock actually didn't drop as much as I'd expect.
And then Apple's stock pulls off another jaw-dropping rally. It surged fiercely from $165 in April 2024 to $259 by December 2024. In May, they flexed their muscles by announcing a $110 billion stock buyback, the largest by a single company in U.S. stock market history. Then, in June, they unveiled Apple Intelligence. That finally built up hype around the AI race they'd been lagging in. Since you needed the newest iPhone to actually use the AI features, it perfectly baited the hook for new iPhone upgrades.
But didn't Apple do stock buybacks before 2024 too? Did that $110 billion really have such a magical effect?
You're spot on. They were already doing about $90 billion in buybacks annually before that, so you could argue they only added another $20 billion. However, doing it exactly when people thought Apple was in crisis sent a massive message of confidence. It was them effectively saying, "What crisis?" Plus, just carrying the title of the largest buyback in US history gave it a heavy psychological impact.
I've always heard that stock prices are driven by people's expectations, and they played that perfectly.
The stock, which was at $259 in December 2024, fell to $202 by August 2025. It could have been a much uglier bloodbath when the Trump administration slapped tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese imports. But CEO Tim Cook worked his magic. Right after the executive order dropped, he managed to secure tariff exemptions for Apple's core hardware like smartphones, computers, and silicon chips, dodging a massive bullet. The drop was really more about the terror of a global trade war and a sluggish macroeconomic environment.
Nvidia took a similar dive around that time. Sounds like those tariffs caught a lot of companies in the crossfire.
The stock bounced back from that $202 low in August 2025, hitting $286 by December 2025. As of today, that's Apple's all-time historical high. During this period, Apple posted record-shattering earnings. Their ever-growing services sector saw continuous bumps in both revenue and gross margin, and they kept up the stock buybacks. Basically, it was an era of proven, hard results. Expectations for interest rate cuts were also running high.
I think I read some news that the iPhone 17 Air came out around then and outsold the old Plus models. It probably didn't have as much impact as their best-selling Pro models, but did that contribute to the stock bump too?
That's a bit of a gray area. There's actually talk that the increase in iPhone 17 Air sales just cannibalized the iPhone 17 Pro sales. If that's true, from Apple's perspective, they essentially just lost consumers who would have bought the more expensive tier. On top of that, the 17 Air got a lot of flack for disappointing battery life, and rumor has it they actually had to slash production volumes compared to their initial plans.
I thought the Air looked super sleek because it's so thin, but I guess from the company's standpoint, it wasn't exactly a home run.
After that peak, the stock cooled off a bit and has been hovering around the $250 mark. The Israel-Iran war is a factor, but honestly, Apple has a few other lingering storm clouds. Their motion to dismiss the DOJ's smartphone antitrust lawsuit was denied in June 2025, so that battle is still raging. They're also fighting a lawsuit in India over their excessive 30% App Store fees. So there are definitely still valid concerns eating at their profit margins.
So that brings us to today. Maybe it's because we just talked about Nvidia, but it feels less like Apple had some explosive recent transformation and more like they've just been quietly crushing it forever.
Well, despite a few shuffles in the rankings here and there, you have to remember this is a company that first hit the #1 spot in market cap back in 2011, and then practically held the throne for over a decade.
I do have a question, actually. There was endless news for a while about Apple making an Apple car. Why didn't that come up in this 5-year stock review? Was it just because they never actually sold anything, so it didn't impact revenue, and therefore didn't move the stock? But wait, I thought you said stocks move on hype.
You're talking about the rumored Project Titan. The whispers started around 2014, and Tim Cook officially acknowledged it in a Bloomberg interview in 2017. But honestly, they never made any formal announcements before or after that, so it never really moved the needle on the stock. Occasionally, a rumor would leak about them talking to a major automaker, and the stock would blip up, but the impact was always negligible. When they finally canceled the project in February 2024, They didn't even announce it publicly. It leaked to the press from an internal meeting. Investors weren't even disappointed enough to dump the stock. Ironically, shares actually closed up about 1% the day the news broke.
So everything I've been reading in the news was just leaks and rumors all along. I was personally both excited and terrified to see how much an Apple car would cost.
Instead, word on the street is that the Project Titan crew got reassigned to their robotics and AI divisions. They might end up doing even better work over there.
AI makes sense since Apple's been pushing that a lot lately, but robotics? Apple is doing robots?
Rumor has it they started working on it back in 2022. The gossip says they're prepping two types, a tabletop robot and a mobile one that follows you around the house. Some say the tabletop one could drop around 2027 and the mobile one sometime after 2028. But again, it's all just rumors. We'll have to wait for an official announcement to know for sure.
So they've been quietly cooking up new stuff this whole time. By the way, you've mentioned their services revenue a few times instead of just product sales. How big of a chunk is their services division actually taking up?
In terms of pure revenue, services made up about 19% of the pie in 2021, and that grew to 26% by 2025.
So services are a solid quarter of their revenue. That's a big chunk, sure, but sometimes I see people online saying Apple is a services company now. Are they really saying that just based on a 1/4 share?
Well, if you look at their gross margin, products account for 58% and services make up 42%. So in terms of actual profit, services are raking in almost half the cash. If the trend holds, services might soon be the biggest moneymaker for the entire company.
That explains the narrative. Thanks, sir. I finally feel like I understand Apple now. I always just thought of them as the guys who sold iPhones, but it's a lot deeper than that.
They're an incredible company, and since they're hitting their 50th anniversary soon, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other news they drop.
Huh? The lights just went out again. Are you still falling behind on the electric bill? Do you not get any other customers?
Nope, nobody. I wonder why that is.
Probably because your coffee is terrible.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I really wonder why.
Well, it is what it is. Just come by every now and then when you think of me.
Will do. I'll visit often. Catch you later, sir.
Have a great day, and see you again soon.